In the previous lesson, you wrote your first Python program that printed hello world to the screen. In this lesson, you will be learning about the primitive types of data that you can work with in Python. In your terminal, let's go ahead and back out of the hello folder and create a different one for the work we're about to do. Go ahead and type cd ... Dot means parent folder, so cd ... means to go back up to the parent folder. You should be back in module 0 now. Now go ahead and create a new directory called math. Cd into math and then type vim math.py. Before, we touched the file first, which created an empty file, and then opened it in Vim, so Vim can be used to open existing files, but if a file doesn't exist yet, Vim will create it for you. Now, inside this file, go ahead and type the same thing you did in the last program, print hello world in quotes. These quotes denote that the hello world is a string, and a string is one of the basic primitive types. String just means text. I'll add a comment to the end of the line saying string here. Comments in coding are ways for you to add notes to your code without it being processed by the code. In Python, the start of a note or a comment is going to start with the pound sign, so everything after this pound sign is not processed as part of the program. Let's go ahead and print some other types of data here. Go ahead and hit enter for a new line and type print with 15 inside the parentheses. Another primitive type in Python is integers or whole numbers. Alright, I'm going to add this note here, numbers without decimals. Naturally, if we have a type for numbers without decimals, we also have a type for numbers with decimals. Those are called floats, or numbers with decimals. Another type here is called the complex number, which involves a real and imaginary component. You don't need to remember this one, it's not as important for this course. If you're curious where this comes from, it is heavily used in engineering. And then the final primitive type you should be aware of is the Boolean. The Boolean type is only one of two values, true or false. We'll learn more about this later. And that completes what we need to do for now. If you remember the commands from working in the last program, remember to escape back to normal mode, :W to write or save your changes, :Q to quit. Now back in the terminal, you can execute your program by typing Python 3 math.py. Just like before, write, execute. And now you should see that the program you just wrote printed out all these different values. Cool. The things that we just went over are called primitives, or the most basic types of data that Python can work with. Other languages actually have more primitives, but Python keeps it simple here. Before we end the video here, I want to cover another thing that you're going to be using more and more as you go through the course, and in general actually, and that's the Python Repl. Either in the same window or a new one, up to you, go ahead and just type Python or Python 3, and now you're inside what's called the Python Repl. Repl stands for read, eval, print, loop, and the reason it's called this is because you enter some data or information, the Python Repl evaluates it, prints out a result, and then it waits for more input. If you ever want to try something out really quickly, experiment or debug your program, the Repl is a great tool for doing so. Inside the Repl here, go ahead and type what I'm typing, type the word type, T-Y-P-E, open parentheses, and then hello in quotes, close parentheses, and then hit enter. The type function returns the class or the type of the item inside the parentheses. So you can see here, hello in quotes is a string, or str for short. And then if you see here, if I do the same thing for all of these other types that we printed out, you will get the corresponding class or type of the item. The reason I showed you the Repl was not to teach you the type function, but to show you that the Repl is an invaluable tool. We'll be using it a lot more in the future. For now, let's conclude this video here. You have learned about the 5 primitive data types in Python: string or basic text, integers or whole numbers, floats or numbers with decimals, complex numbers, and then Booleans. We'll be working closely with all of these types except for complex. It's not important for this particular course. In the next lesson, we're going to use some of these data types to learn about operators or special characters that have special behavior in programming. In particular, we'll look at mathematical operators. See you in the next video.